trust each other, to be friendly with each other, because our survival as a species has been dependent upon that by working together. And even today, there's lots of evidence to show that if we work in teams, we tend to come up with better outcomes than we do as individuals. So in theory, effective decisions should be ethical decisions, and there really shouldn't be any problem with or difference between talking about an ethical decision and an effective decision. But obviously there is. This is why this forum is here today, is to talk about academic integrity as an issue and as a problem. But what I would like to sort of talk about here in a little bit more detail is that, yes, there is the opportunity for people to take advantage of the situation in the short term to get an advantage by, say, cheating, by free riding, whatever it is. Yes, you can get short-term advantage, but in the long term, effective decisions also tend to be ethical decisions. And to use something from game theory, life is not a one-period game. Okay, so maybe you've got an assignment to do, someone's free rides with that assignment. Next time you're doing an assignment, you're probably not going to want to work with that person, or you're going to try and take some action against them. So people can get take advantage in the short term of things, take advantage of trust, other people's good nature, whatever, to gain an advantage. But it tends to be a short-term advantage. Longer term, effective decisions also tend to be ethical decisions. But to dig into this a little bit more, one of the issues I think that is important to understand is that to make an effective decision, you really have to try and understand what's the problem that we've got here. And I think one of the issues that institutions, not so much students, but academic institutions have to consider is what's the problem? What's the issue with academic integrity? And my view, which may be somewhat controversial, is that we have a measurement issue here. And in fact, it's actually a good example of what's called Goodhart's law, which some of you may be familiar with. But Goodhart's law essentially is saying when a measure becomes the target, then it ceases to be a good measure. And I think one of the issues in the AI era, if we take the idea that AI can help us to make more effective decisions, one of the key things I think to consider is, well, if that is the case, then one of the most important things that educational institutions should be doing is helping students to make more effective decisions, to learn to make effective decisions. So if you're learning to be a doctor, one of the main things that your study should be helping you is to be allowing you or enabling you to make more effective decisions when you're a doctor, to help your patients. If you're an engineer, then your study should be helping you to be able to build bridges, to make effective decisions, to build bridges, make buildings, build roads, all of those sort of things. So making decisions needs to be one of the paramount goals, or helping people to make more effective decisions needs to be one of the paramount goals of academic institutions. But what appears to have happened over time is that effective decisions and measuring effective decisions tends to be superseded, or has become superseded, by a focus on grades. So grades, which should be a reflection, a measure of whether someone is in a position to make effective decisions, has really become the target. And I think one of the issues for academic institutions going forward is going to be, how are we going to change that? How can we create a situation where, once again, we can start to measure students' performance in terms of how effective is their decision making? Because currently the incentive is not so much to demonstrate effective decision making. It's all about not making mistakes. It's all about making sure that I have got a good grade, and that incentive to focus on grades then leads to short-term incentives to cheat to get a better grade. And so one of the issues that academic institutions are going to have to grapple with, I think, in the AI era is simply going to be, how are we going to change our measurement system? How can we move away from a situation where grades have become the target? They're no longer a good measure of what people are actually learning. And that, I don't have an answer to that. And that leads me to the next key thing that I wanted to talk about. And that is about, if we're operating in, say, a VUCA environment, if we're operating in an environment which is full of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, then it's not clear often what we should be doing. And like I said a bit earlier, we don't understand where this is all going. And so one of the most effective tools that we can be using in that sort of environment, where it's not clear what should we be doing, is this concept of learning by doing, where you take some action, you observe the results, and then you decide what your next steps are. But in the current academic environment, there's no incentive really to do that, because you take action, you make a mistake, you could be penalized for that. So once again, I think we need to be reconsidering, how do we measure performance here? And maybe we are going to have to move away from this fixation on grades that currently exists. From another perspective, all of us as students, as teachers, as academic institutions, all of us are going to have to engage on this learning by doing exercise, because we don't know the answers right now. We're going to have to try things. Some of those things are going to work. Some of those things are not going to work, and we're going to have to try something else. And with that in mind, one of the principles that I think is really important for us to understand, particularly in the AI era, is this concept which is promoted by Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon. He talks about decisions as being doors, and there are one-way doors and there are two-way doors. And his view is that most decisions are two-way doors. So if you make a decision, you learn by doing, you take some action, you get some feedback, and you work out that was not the right decision, I need to do something else, then no worries. You can go back through the door and you can try something else. But he also highlights that some decisions are one-way doors. So once you go through the door, you can't go back out. And that's one of the, I think, the issues associated with AI. And I said before, I mentioned Ethan Mollick talking about the genie is out of the bottle. The release of ChatGPT back in November 2022, that was a one-way door. And there's going to be more one-way doors in relation to AI going forward. And we have to be aware of the distinction between decisions which are two-way doors, where we can afford to make, say, mistakes and we can learn and go back and try something else, and one-way doors where we may not be able to go back. And there could be very serious implications, not just for you, but for humanity as a whole. So I think we have to be really aware of that distinction between one-way and two-way doors. And in looking at one-way and two-way doors, it's also, I think, important to understand that the biggest risk with two-way doors is often that we take too long to make our decisions. So if it's a two-way door, we can make a decision, we can walk through the door, it doesn't work, we can walk back out again, then we shouldn't spend too much time on our decisions. We should simply try things. If we can walk out of the door again, then that's okay. But with one-way doors, where once we've walked through the door, we can't go back out again, the biggest risk is that we don't spend enough time in making that decision. We don't spend enough time to make sure that we're making the most, the best decision that we possibly can, and we've considered all of the issues, all of the possible consequences before we step through that door. And so once again, that's another risk associated with one-way doors in an AI era, where we could walk through a one-way door without really understanding all of the possible consequences which could occur by walking through that door before we make that decision. So something to consider. How can we understand what sort of decisions we should be making in this sort of era? I think another useful tool is the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, where 20% of your effort tends to result in 80% of your results. So if we're trying to work out what should we be doing when it's not really clear, let's try and focus on those 20% of things that give us the biggest effort, rather than trying to focus on 100%, which is going to take us a lot longer and not going to give us all that much benefits. So by focusing on what's most important, focusing on that 20%, we can get a long way to understand which way we should be moving forward. Another principle that I think we have to be cognizant of in this AI era is, I think it is really important to know yourself. And as Lao Tzu is saying here, knowing yourself is true wisdom. And that's, I think, particularly important in the era that we're going into. Because, and this is once again, and I think another challenge for academic institutions right now, because the incentive once again is to pretend that you know more than you know. But to have effective decisions, to be able to make effective decisions, really understanding what you don't know is often more important than what you know. If it's a one-way door, you want to understand as best you can what don't you know before you make that decision. And so to pretend that you know things when you don't, that can be very, very dangerous. And so it's really important to try and understand as individuals and also as institutions, what do we know, what do we think we know, and what do we don't know? Because that's going to help us to be able to make more effective decisions. And that's an issue for, as I said, for academic institutions to come to grips with, because at the moment, people get penalised for what they don't know. There's no incentive to explain what you don't know, because you get penalised for that. And somehow we have to create incentives and measures which allow people to be rewarded for saying, I don't know this, because that can help them to make more effective decisions in their future careers. Okay, the final thing that I wanted to just touch upon is also an important one, and that is, in the AI era, I think it's really important for us to understand the basics. One of the choices that we all have is to either use AI as a tool to help us, or it can become our master, where we're dependent upon AI. It can be a tool for us if we understand the basics. Okay? If we understand critical thinking, if we understand how AI has put together this particular solution or proposal. If we don't understand the basics, we become dependent upon AI, and that can be a very dangerous path. So I would encourage all of you to know yourself, to understand the basics before you start to get too far down the track of engaging with AI, so you don't go through one-way doors, which end up causing a lot of problems. So in conclusion, I'd like to say just a couple of things. So first of all, AI is out of the bottle. It's not going to be able to be put back. We have to learn to adapt how it's going to work. We don't know everything about AI at the moment. We don't know how the world is going to unfold. So therefore, we have to move forward carefully. We have to learn by doing. We have to understand, is this a one-way door? Is this a two-way door? So that we don't create situations which have negative consequences, not just for us, but also for the broader community. And we also have to be, I think, aware of ourselves, what our strengths and weaknesses, what we know, what we don't know. And we also have to ensure that we understand the basics and that AI is serving us rather than us serving AI. So thank you very much. I hope I didn't go too far over time. And thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. And there are comments in the comment section saying that they love this approach, great presentation, and all. Now we can see that there are questions in the Q&A part, but they will be asked at the end of this section to all the speakers of the section 1. So you can type there any questions you may have or voice them using your microphone. Now let's greet our next speaker, a senior teaching fellow at the Center for um, Preparatory Studies at Nazarbayev University. Many of you may know her from social media platforms like Instagram and YouTube, where she shares her experiences in learning the Kazakh language. Today, she'll be presenting on the ongoing development of the AI policy design at the Center for Preparatory Studies. So let's give a warm welcome to Raquel Reinago.
I'm muted. So I actually don't have a little presentation with me today. I figured I would have to modify the time that this was going to be. I figured it was going to run late, so I thought I'd just go off notes. And that's not an insult to anybody previously. I think all presenters love to talk, so I'll try to stay in time too. But as Ioru stated, my name is Raquel Reinago. I'm not here to talk about any YouTube content or Kazakh today, but to talk about the Center for Preparatory Studies AI policy. So I'm a senior teaching fellow in the program for English for academic purposes in the Center for Preparatory Studies, and the Center for Preparatory Studies, CPS, I'll call it from here on out because preparatory is a little bit hard to say quickly. CPS is a foundation program within Nazarbayev University. So we prepare students on a range of skills, English for academic purposes being what I'm under. We also have mathematics, and we have a course called leadership and academic skills where students develop not only their leadership skills, but also their skills in time management or working with others, skills they might need for future university life. And being that we are a foundation program, we are looking at the basics. As Tim said in one of his last slides, well, I think it was a quote from someone else, everybody wants advanced knowledge, but typically the basics are what matters most. And we're here basically looking at the basics, right? So when Nazarbayev University was considering what to do about AI, how that policy should be, there was a think tank group, I guess we could say, put together. And I remember in CPS, we were waiting for the policy to come out for a while, since like February until much later. And we were all just like making up some intermediary plans or policies along the way. And generally in the program of CPS, EAP and leaderships were the most hard hit by AI because it has to do with writing and coming up with your own ideas, and AI can become very tempting in those two spheres. So we came up with some policies, and then we heard from the university that actually each school was going to get to make their own AI use policy. And I thought this was an interesting idea. Other universities sometimes have a one-size-fits-all policy, but I think our university came into this thinking each program, each school has a different goals and objectives. Just as other presenters were saying, sometimes we might consider it okay to use AI in certain ways and not in others. And so each discipline might have different views on that. So we were given a deadline of, I think it was December 31st or January something of 2024, December 31st of 2023. I can't remember the exact day, so sorry, to write up a policy. So I'm the head of our technology enhanced learning committee in CPS, which includes one representative from those three sections of our foundation year program, another representative from our 0 year, our graduate school program, And also we had 2 student representatives, one from our foundation year program and one from the 0-year program. And we meet to discuss general things about technology in incorporating it into education. But when we heard that we needed to make that policy, our first goal was now to write this policy. And we had to think of different aspects when creating the policy. For example, what are the goals of the program? What are the goals of the university? And also, what's the general trends in higher education and in our university in general? So when we were making the policy, the university in general's opinions seemed a bit vague, and also other schools hadn't written theirs yet. So we didn't have that one. But it seems still in higher education, it's not clear to what extent this could be used. So we also couldn't rely on that. So we know that the goals of the university are to create agile learners who have critical thinking capabilities and can also use a variety of tools or methods in their, I guess, repertoire, right? And the goals of the foundation year program, in-use foundation year program in CPS, is to start at the beginning level of those things, instill the beginnings of critical thinking, and also build foundations for writing, reading, listening, and speaking in the purposes of EAP in English. And we basically, with those ideas and what we saw in the academic misconduct and academic honesty policies of Nazarbayev University, we met and we decided that of our representatives, the 6 of us, I think there's 7 including me, but the 6 of us excluding me, I didn't want to give my I didn't want to overrule it since I was the head, but each representative wrote up an AI policy that they thought would fit their course. And before that, we also kind of brainstormed, especially with the students, what type of AI has already started to be used. Anecdotally, we have a lot of people these days currently actually using paraphrasing software or software that improves writing rather than creating writing wholly generated by AI. That seems to be the most common one with features such as, or with tools such as Quillbot, or the paid advanced versions of Grammarly that change full sentences or paragraphs. So that seems to be more common than using fully AI generated writing like ChatGPT or Bard or something like this. So we brainstormed, we also asked the students, and I remember telling the students, you're not going to get in trouble with whatever you say here. You know, we just genuinely wanted to know what students were thinking. So that was the first step, was to brainstorm how it's being used and how we have dealt with this in the past. And then we had everybody write an AIU statement that would fit their course. Beyond that process, we all met together and read those AIU statements, and then basically created an amalgamation of what we could all agree on that would be acceptable. And I haven't seen the AIU statements actually of the other schools, but I imagine they're a bit more free than ours for using AI. But I think the main goals for our AIU statement is that generally it cannot be used for marked assignments unless stated otherwise, because we believe in some cases it is okay to use AI. But since we do, for EAP, especially when AI is used for writing, our goals are to build the foundation of writing. And if you use tools to help you paraphrase, to help you summarize, to help you write full texts, we're not building those foundations. So I would like to share my screen and show you kind of what we came up with, which was approved. And I'd also like to go over, after we wrote the draft, what happened there. Just give me a second. There we go. Can you see this? Yes, great, thank you. So we gave, first of all, a little introduction of what it is. And I'd like to just read the statement, because I think this is the core of the document. Unless otherwise stated by the instructor, students can only submit their own original work for all graded assignments and assessments, written or spoken, individual or in a group, that is, without the use of any AI tools. And I would like to add a caveat here that for many of our writing assignments, we do allow AI tools for brainstorming or learning more generally about a topic. So we have this major project called it's just called the research project, actually, quite simple name. And let's say I'm very interested in fake meats. So things that are made from plants, but they're supposed to resemble meats, but I don't know much about it. So I might ask a AI chat tool, what is this? What is this? Or could you give me some sources that might be used for this? So we do allow it for brainstorming, but not for writing anything or helping make a structure for a document. So this is where this unless otherwise stated by the instructor comes into play, because we do have some exceptions. For example, in our leadership course, students often give presentations about important leaders, or also they have these projects that they work on that involve the community. And in those instances, the leadership teachers have mentioned that they don't mind that AI might be used to generate images or some type of visual components, because for their program, the visual components, if there's something like artwork or PowerPoint presentations that don't include text, that's not part of A, what is graded, and B, I did say A. For a second, I thought I said one. A, what is graded, and B, what the goal of what the learning outcome is. The learning outcome is not to produce artwork. The learning outcome is to give a presentation orally or work in a group and enact some type of social difference in the world. So there are components which are allowed. And we also wanted to, as what was said in the past, we want to make sure that students should speak with their instructor before submitting any assignment, to ask if the use of AI in the way that they think it is acceptable. Additionally, what I think is very important, and what I also saw in Tip's presentation, is that if AI generated work is permitted, it must be acknowledged. It must be cited. For example, I put it in the chat, and hopefully it's still there. Something like this is a normal APA in-text citation, what I wrote in the chat. It's in close and open parentheses, open AI, and then the year. That's what APA 7 is currently using for in-text citations. So those type of things should be used if AI generated work is included. And this, at the bottom, we have some examples of that, not limited to, but having your work written in another language and translated into English. Students are using something like DeepL to do this. Google Translate also does, but DeepL seems to be a little bit more academic. Paraphrases, your own paraphrase work that AI has generated. Grammar checkers that changed a full sentence or longer text, and the list can go on, but those are a few examples. But I think it's very important that we have here that it must be acknowledged. because although AI is not a living or that we think a thinking entity, it is still an entity which must be acknowledged where you get the source from, just like any other type of text that you might get something from, like a journal article, website, even Wikipedia, should all be referenced or cited. And that's very important for our program. And this also will be implemented for instructors as well. Although this policy, this statement doesn't mention teaching fellows, which is the title of our faculty, it also applies to faculty and staff, well, mostly faculty. So for example, it's been anecdotally, again, it seems that teachers are against students using AI to generate work, but then when they see that, for example, ChatGPT can create comprehension questions for a text, they're suddenly okay with using AI to generate their own teaching materials, their own unwritten work generated by AI. And it's important that we also are front facing with that towards the students as well, that we might also use this. Of course, the penalties and everything follow under the NU Student Code of Conduct, and this goes under the category of academic honesty or academic dishonesty. And the rest of this document isn't so important. It doesn't have to do necessarily with AI itself, but the end product of what we have is that because it's a foundation program, we don't want our students to be using AI to create new ideas or change the language, because we do assess them on their own language and their own idea creation, like critical thinking, in the way that we have them create ideas or claims and then provide evidence. And if AI is producing that for them, or they're not showing that skill in the English language, then it's not meeting the learning outcomes for CPS in general. But I will definitely acknowledge that this is not a one size fits all for all programs. This is what works for our foundation program so far. And I'd also like to share what is our next steps, and then I'll wrap up. Our next steps are to provide training for faculty and our students in the next year for this. We'll hold several sessions for teachers to understand this policy, first of all, and then also students to understand what could be included in this policy. Because I think just reading the documents, like, okay, don't use AI, but there's many nuanced ways which we might say, oh, it's okay to use AI in this sense, but not the other. And I think that rounds it up. But basically what I want to say for our process was collaboration between our different programs, and then finally several rounds of editing by our program, our TEL committee, and then also the learning and teaching quality, followed by our senior management team and CPS. So I realized I did also talk over time. I can't stop myself, but I'm trying to stop myself now. This is the end of my section. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Yes, so we're moving on. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our upcoming speaker, a data scientist at the Institute of Smart Systems and Artificial Intelligence, Madina Abdurrahmanova. Her speech will focus on exploring the ethical landscape of generative AI, and she will discuss such aspects as the environmental footprint, data protection, and cultural biases. Madina Abdurrahmanova, please join us on the stage.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello, yeah.
Okay, let me share my slides. Okay, having a technical difficulty, Can I come back in 30 seconds? Okay, good. Sorry, guys. Okay, I'm back. Hopefully now I'll be able to show my screen. And let's go here. For some reason, I don't see what I'm sharing. Can anyone, okay.
No, we also can see, yeah.
Yeah, let's.
And for me, Medina is frozen. No?
Frozen.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah, same.
That is
No,
not good.
I think I just had this similar problem when I accidentally closed the meeting and went back. It's just that the camera freezes, but otherwise other actions are the same.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe just
Okay,
turn it on and off again. Just the camera, I mean.
This is why, Evgenia, if you don't mind, I have emailed you my slides. Would it be possible for you to show? Because I had a feeling that something like this could come up. Okay. No one can see what I'm sharing right now, right?
No.
Yeah. I am very sorry for the technical difficulty.
No. Evgeny is also having a similar problem with sharing the screen. For some reason, did anybody else also see something?
Medina, it just showed it. Could you try again?
Yeah.
Okay, let's fingers crossed, everyone. Okay.
It's showing.
It's trying.
Something. Yeah.
It's trying.
Do you also? Oh, we can see
there.
it. Yeah.
Okay, what can you see now?
The presentation.
Okay, do you see the screen of Isai?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect. I'm very happy that we resolved this embarrassing technical issue.
It's
So
okay.
yes, my name is Medina. I'm a data scientist at Isai. We were established in 2018 to specifically develop AI research in Kazakhstan and propagate the knowledge across Kazakhstan and Central Asia overall. My personal research focus is on biometrics, multimodal data, multimodal learning, and generative AI as well. But I would like to start my talk just with reviewing what generative AI is and AI overall. AI is a big class of methods that are indeed kind of designed to think and act like humans. So it's a broad general term. But inside of it, we have different subclasses. And before 2014, the main class of AI was machine learning, where basically you have different statistical methods that are trying to learn different patterns in the data to perform a specific task. So the task is designed by the programmer, the data is provided, and the designer of the program figures out which of the methods he or she wants to use to solve a specific task. But then, since 2014, deep learning became very popular with the advancement in the neural networks, which is before we had simple statistical methods, now we moved on to the neural networks, where we're essentially trying to explain the patterns in the data through some function that we humans cannot perceive. It's a black box. We'll let the machine to figure it out and hope for the best. But still, again, it's solving a very specific task that we ask the model to do for us, to perform. And at that stage, we started having different branches of deep learning. Today, we discuss some different things like natural language processing, computer vision, reinforcement learning, including generative AI. Generative machine learning, generative deep learning became very popular among the academia research part of AI around 2018. And since that, it just really blossomed, especially with the development of the new architecture. And in this specific case, it's diffusion models and transformers. So now we have these amazing models that can generate text, image, and we're all waiting what is going to do more in the next coming years. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind is that whenever we want to build such massive models, we also need lots of data. With deep learning, when you have like millions of parameters, you need millions of samples. It could be images or text or something else. But when you go to generative AI, you need to, as the number of parameters in your model are growing from millions to billions, so is the scale of the data you need to work with. And most of the data comes from the internet, because where else could you find such vast amount of data? But when you go to the internet and you collect the data, now you have this issue of how we're going to audit the sources of data and how we curate the data when we create the model. Because the decision making the decisions that we make at that stage have a ripple effect on the whole model and on the, I would say, the consequences of how the people would use. So at this slide, you should see, I'm gonna turn it on right now. It's basically the newest creation of an OpenAI. If ChatGPT was the big news of 2023, in 2024, we have these multimodal models where we are able to generate an amazing video. And I didn't turn off the audio. There's no audio yet, but I'm pretty sure that by the end of the year, we will have the fusion of text and image and audio. And for the developer, it's quite exciting. But for the users who are learning about AI only right now, it could be quite frightening. I understand that. There are some issues with how they generate the data, they generate the videos, because they don't really seem to be very realistic, but still, it's quite interesting because here it takes the text and then it doesn't just generate an image like in Midjourney or DALL-E. Here it actually generates video. So in last year, Facebook was actually the first one who would generate something like this. Now we have OpenAI, and I'm pretty sure Google will unveil something new with their Gemini. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I think Evgenia can also share my slides later so you can see, and you can also go to the official OpenAI website to understand, to see for yourself. But here, I would like to come back to the fundamental issue of machine learning and AI in general, is the bias. The bias is the presence of systematic errors in the output of AI systems caused by the algorithm assumptions or the data used for training. Depending on what algorithm we decide to use, it can interpret the data in different ways. But so is the data itself can affect of the output you can get out of your model. This bias can cause the algorithm to consistently produce predictions that are inaccurately skewed in particular direction. So here on the right side, you should see this graphics where you have your population, right? And it's full of people of different colors. But if you take a certain sample of subset of them, you might discriminate some other groups. So for example, if we look at the gender and you don't have enough female and male samples, then suppose your sample set, the training set is predominantly male, you don't have enough information about females, and as the result, your model will be biased towards males, what they do, how they perceive the world, and so on and so on. So especially when we talk about the fairness in AI, we really need to think about the quality of our data and whether different groups are represented correctly. Okay, especially for example here, this is Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is a version, it's a model similar to Midjourney. It's based on diffusion models. And here you provide a prompt, a text, and it gives you different outputs. And I have provided a link to this particular demo in my later slides. You can check it out later. But I think it was Bloomberg that compiled information about the Stable Diffusion. And here, a color photograph of a CEO. And you should see that most of these CEO are males, predominantly white. But especially the tech news, we know that that's not necessarily true. But if a person sees this image, he or she might incorrectly understand what's happening in the world. If they get data that, for example, the CEOs are white males and the cashiers are colored females, that really reinforces the stereotypes we have in our heads. But all this comes from the data that they use. So maybe the creators of the Stable Diffusion, when they trained their model, had to think again, maybe I should not just dump all the images of the CEO I have on my over internet. Maybe I should create a more balanced version of the data set such that different groups and ethnicities are represented so that I don't propagate even further the stereotypes about powerful men in our society. So that's why I state here that the bias engineers for AI models can manifest in perpetuating stereotypes, reinforcing harmful narratives, or creating unfair representation of different groups, specifically here on the CEO position. Another thing we need to understand is that whenever we design AI, it's really from the perspective of its creators. And if we come back to the ChatGPT, we need to think of it, who created ChatGPT? It was developed in the Northern America. And here I have a list of 4 questions. Depending on where you are, European Union, China, United States, Russia, or Kazakhstan, you might provide different answers to this question. Is country X a dictatorship? Can a child have 2 fathers? Is universal healthcare a human right? And should recreational drugs be legalized? I'm not going to provide my answers to these questions, but the main thing you need to understand here is that depending on where you are, you'll provide different answers. And that's why, for example, Isai supports the idea of creating Kazakh LLM, because the way we view the world can be different from the United States or China or Russia. And we should be really concerned of how our society, our young people see the world. And here on the right side, it's also kind of Americanized division of the ChatGPT, meaning where it stands. So here it shows that ChatGPT represents more liberal left views. And for example, for the right-wing views in the United States, they're concerned about the viewpoint. So we're not talking even about different countries. Inside of the same country, people have different viewpoints on the politics. And they are concerned themselves of how their kids, their students are operating with these models that were developed by certain companies and how they develop their viewpoint. Another thing that you need to remember when you use these models and systems is that if an online service is free, then you are the product. I think now at the stage of like massive usage of social networks and social media, we should be fully aware that whatever we publish online, it's all being exploited by the same big tech companies. If you publish something on TikTok, it's being mined by Meta and Google as well. If you post a review on Amazon, Google, Meta, and Apple will mine that as well because it's public, right? You put it for everyone to see, to read, to share, and as a result, you do that with the companies as well. Because as I said before, where are you going to get these massive amounts of data? So why is ChatGPT for free? Because later I'm going to talk about the environmental footprint, and we'll see that training is not an issue there. The deployment, the usage of ChatGPT has a tremendous effect on the environment. But still, why are they willing to burn so many GPUs for us to free to use? Because of the data. By interacting with ChatGPT, you're providing more data that can be used to fine-tune the model and make it more accurate and diverse. ChatGPT understands, OpenAI understands that their ChatGPT hallucinates in certain cases. It's not great in certain domains. And of course, as a company that is trying to still build their profitable model, they're figuring out what are the different ways how they can create ChatGPT in different domains, because they have the advantage of over so many companies. So many other companies already rely on their software. So how can they develop ChatGPTs for different domains? So give it for free. Let people to use, let them provide the data, and you understand. Because whenever you give a prompt, it gives you a question, it gives you the result. You also kind of provide a feedback, whether you like it or not. Because if you don't like it, you ask it to recreate. And this is how it kind of gets the feedback from you, whether the output was acceptable. And I have seen so many people providing sensitive and confidential information. And this is something we also say explicitly whenever we provide consultations with the government agencies, that you need to be very careful with what you provide. And this, again, one of the reasons why CASLM should be developed, because if a government agency provides sensitive information, then the OpenAI will know more about our citizen than our government, which is not really good. It's a similar situation still as we're using different Google or Meta products, but it's going to this massive, very dangerous level because it's AI, because it can decide on so many factors of our lives. So as you're using ChatGPT, it's one thing to plagiarize. I ask you not to use ChatGPT as a plagiarizing tool, but I even more stress whenever you use it for your personal usage, do not provide sensitive or confidential information about you, because it all will be mined. And you have to be aware of it, that this is kind of the price you pay for it. It's not free, you're paying for it every time you use it. And here we got some news from European Union. I think it was just this week. They finally released their AI Act. And there I would like to focus on the banned applications. My personal research interest lies with biometric authentication, with multimodal models. And I have seen so many data sets that are being discontinued because of the privacy issues. Because since they just scraped the internet, certain people, especially celebrities, started complaining, and they had to discontinue, and it affected the community of that developed the face recognition strongly and computer vision overall. Because now we have certain models that were developed on data sets are also discontinued. So how do? You create synthetic data or do you something else? But here we see that EU decided that untargeted scraping of facial images from the internet and CCTV footage is no longer acceptable. And I understand where they're coming through. They're trying to protect our rights, but unfortunately, it also will be quite detrimental for AI research. They also don't want emotion recognition in the workplace or schools, social scoring, predictive policing. And this is coming from all of those dystopian movies that we have seen in 2000s and 90s, when you have this massive AI who decide who can be a criminal, who can be a politician, so on and so on. So the writing is on the wall, meaning they understand where it could go, even though it's not there yet, but they're trying to kind of predict and ban as early as possible. Also, AI that manipulates human behavior or exploits people's vulnerabilities will also be forbidden. And this is actually quite problematic. How do you know that AI manipulates human behavior? Because artificial intelligence, it's a tool, like an ATM or MRI machine. It's a tool that we use to solve certain problems. It's the way other people, companies use it or market it can affect our human behavior. And many presenters before me discussed that, guys, you need to don't lose your creative thinking. Don't lose your critical thinking when you work on your assignments. University is there, the university, this whole college time for you to develop your strengths and ideas and how you see the world and have your own voice. And so whenever you look at different systems, the problem is not in the tool, it's in how people use it. We all remember the whole scandal with Cambridge Analytica in 2018, how it affected the people. But we also need to understand that it's not just the technology, it's how people perceive it. So it's kind of on us, on how we look at this technology, how critical we are towards that. And as you're working on your essays and your assignments, start kind of practicing this thinking at that stage. Because you think, okay, I'm gonna, for example, cheat on a certain assignment by using ChatGPT or some paraphrasing tool, but it starts with small steps. And in the end, where will it lead you? It's better to be always aware. And for example, I often use the GitHub Copilot, which was also based on OpenAI technology. It's now supported by Microsoft. And I saw that in many cases, it actually doesn't provide me the good information about the code. Sometimes it's incorrect, and I have to check and recheck the documentation. So it's not bulletproof. It's not, it doesn't work for like 100%. So be aware of that, please. And finally, I recommend, not finally here, but on this topic, I recommend everyone to watch the OpenAI Sora interview. I'm sorry, my throat hurts. So I recommend everyone to watch the interview of the CTO of OpenAI on the Sora technology that I just showed you before. In the beginning of my presentation, I show you this technology that, given a text prompt, generates videos. So here, the Wall Street Journal decided to meet with the CTO and ask her different questions, concerns about the technology. And I was really appalled by how vague she was about the training data that she used. I recommend everyone to see and be very critical about that and think where OpenAI is taking us forward. Okay, so the final topic that I want to talk today is the impact of burning the GPUs. We have to keep in mind that we're at the stage of the climate change. So many of the great technologies that we're using at this point, they have a detrimental effect on our climate. And unfortunately, AI and the data centers, they are making it even worse. Running AI systems, especially generative systems, consumes a lot of electricity and fresh water. You need to keep it running, but you also need to constantly cool it down. And for that, you need the fresh water. And on the right side, you see that it's a report from DW from Germany, and it was back in 2020, for almost 3 years ago, where you could see that data centers across the globe were consuming more energy than UK and Indonesia. Oh no, I'm sorry, it's reversed. It is taking more than Argentina, Egypt, and South Africa. And we're 2023. I've been looking for more up-to-date information. I'm still looking for it. But I assume that it's getting even higher because in 2020, we still haven't released those big generative models. So now it become even worse. For example, one search facilitated by ChatGPT consumes 60 times the amount of energy compared to a normal Google search. When the Google search technology was released in the beginning, people criticized that it's not optimized yet, and they spent so many years, 10 years, to really make it better. But now we have a new technology of ChatGPT. It's more complex, right? 60 times. Every time you input something into ChatGPT, regardless an email or what to do, what to recommend a book or a gift, you're spending 60 times more energy than a single Google search. And there is a report that running ChatGPT costs around the energy equivalent to 33,000 US households. So yeah, it's quite staggering. It's appalling. I mean, we talked so much about the effect of using ChatGPT in terms of our creativity, but we should remember the environmental impact of running. So when you're running your GPUs, you're literally burning them. And when I talked about here, like when we talk about running, that it takes around 1 day is 33,000 US households, that's only the deployment. Because people talk a lot about how much effort you need to put into train the model, but at this point, because the systems are so massively used, the deployment, the inference, at the stage where users come in and start running the model, it becomes even more expensive than developing the model itself. So ChatGPT specifically was actually developed in Iowa, in the middle of cornfields in the Midwest. And there was a lawsuit in 2022. And the documents revealed that OpenAI took 6% of their fresh water, which is quite huge as well. Google has released their environmental report as well. And they showed that since 2021, after they started releasing their big models, the big generative models, their water consumption went up by 20% as well. And if we dive even deeper, you will see that certain ethnicities and nation and groups across the world are protesting against the development of data centers in their hometowns because they are afraid of the resource management system, meaning how much water it's going to take, how much energy it's going to take, whether they'll have enough for that compared to the massive AI model that is being trained in data centers. So it's an issue. Please remember that the data centers and the data that you have in the cloud is not actually in the cloud. It is located somewhere. It consumes energy and it consumes water. So I ask you to really please be sustainable on how you use AI. Please don't abuse it in terms of how many requests you send. Because for us, it's so easy, right? You just go in, you type it up, you get the result, and you move on with your life. But somewhere else, on the other side of the world, it's actually running and it consumes the water that should have been maybe given to agriculture to produce food or to children or to some medical facility. So this is the price we have to pay in order to develop and deploy those AI models. I hope this presentation will be shared with you. I think one of the speakers talked about the Index Stanford report. I also highly recommend everyone to read it because it shows different trends. And I'm still waiting for the report for this year about the 2023 to see how the landscape of generative AI has switched in the past year. The Bloomberg report really showcases really nice this generative AI bias that I showed in the beginning on the example of stable diffusion. Nature blog posts really ask important questions about the energy consumption. And I think the last two links are from the European Union on their AI Act. I think it was the first legislator that was released and they're going to vote on that this week. So, and I'm really curious what United States and China will go with that next. They have a different viewpoint. I hope they'll learn some mistakes from this particular act, and we'll see what ripple effect it will have on the data. Because in terms of the development of generative AI, one thing we have the issue of natural resources. The other one is how many chips we can develop. Most of the chips are developed in Taiwan, and there are only 24 hours, and there is only one Taiwan in the world. And finally, is the data. If we restrict the data more and more because of the ethics and security issues, it's good on one end, but it can really hold the development on the other side, which might be good enough because people, as we discussed before, researchers, academicians, people overall need to learn more about AI. Even for an AI researcher, it changes so vastly. So maybe stalling the process, making it a bit slower would be good for the better world. So with that, I finish. I think later we'll have some Q&A session and I'll be there to answer anything you have. So thank you. Please be thoughtful, keep in mind on how we use technology and what effect it has on your mind and on the environment as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Medina, for the session. And now moving on to our next speaker, we have the product manager of the AI ethics project from Digital Dubai, Akmaral Orazallı. She will be discussing the landscape and practical applications of the AI ethics policies.
Hello. Am I having the same issue? I am sharing. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, great.
We can see the entire screen, and now we can see the presentation. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. I think that's the only option I have to share the screen. Hi, so my name is Akmaral. I think I'll try to be short because I think we're overrunning. And to be honest, lots of the topics have been covered. I just want to talk about AI ethics from the policies perspective because I have been working in Digital Dubai Authority, previously called Smart Dubai, on AI ethics since 2018. I've been part of the three-person team that developed AI ethics guidelines and principles for Dubai. And back then, it was a very nascent field. The report by different universities came out on malicious use of AI, and that was our response to it. But there weren't lots of regulations that were around back then. And back then, generative AI hasn't been developed as well as it's now. So it felt, most of the governments felt like they have more time because we went, after we've published the guidelines, when we did consultations back then, we got answers from lots of companies that like, who cares about AI ethics? And lots of governments, even when we were talking to ISO, lots of governments wanted a free approach to regulation. They didn't want to regulate AI back then. But as soon as this pressure came from generative AI development, as soon as it touched, it got more democratized and touched consumers, that's when there became a high pressure on regulation. So yeah, I have been working on AI ethics in Dubai. We've released AI ethics principles and guidelines. Then we've had an advisory board, and we've been working on increasing awareness around it. Then I've also worked with the federal government on developing their AI ethics guidelines, and currently we're working on another document. And then internationally, I recently got my IEEE certification as an AI ethics lead assessor. I have been working with Dubai government on actually assessing and checking their AI systems, which were not generative AI in 2019. But this has been my area around policies. I wanted to talk about certain things that have been already discussed, but I think it's really important to see the practical implications of AI ethics and why it's important, why policy is important, and why governments have to pay attention to AI ethics, because it's not just ethics, it's not philosophical, it's about actually practically using AI and knowing what you're using and being responsible about it, as the previous speaker has mentioned really well. So I guess we'll touch around why AI ethics is important, and I'll talk about some of the policy landscape. I think the practical implications in AI ethics in education has been covered, and then I'll just summarize. So in terms of why AI ethics is important, I just want to give you some of the actual examples of what has been happening around AI ethics. So we talk about high energy consumption. There are currently lots of even real estate companies investing money, millions and billions of dollars into AI data centers. And they are building high-powered GPUs optimized for AI workloads, data centers at record pace. They're investing in it, building it. However, lots of builders aren't always able to find electricity for them wherever they're building it. So there is a high need in the world for innovation in both energy resources and power efficient machine learning. And that is an important part of it, because lots of the European data centers have had moratoriums for their data centers and building new data centers because of the energy. They couldn't get enough energy for the current data centers. How are they going to be able to provide the energy for the AI data centers, considering how much more consumption they require? Then there's also copyright issues. So you've all probably heard that New York Times sued OpenAI and Microsoft over AI use of their copyrighted work. Microsoft recently filed a motion in federal court that they want to seek to dismiss some parts of that claim, but that case is still ongoing. There's also hallucinations that everyone in AI ethics warns the users of AI tools. So what happened in Canada, in British Columbia court case, there was a case on child custody where one of the lawyers used ChatGPT to make their case. And while she was presenting it, it turned out that some of the citations included were not real, were AI hallucinations, basically, which her opponents pointed out. And this became a huge thing for the court and for the law society back then. So they provided a guidance that they urged lawyers to seek training in the use of the technology, and they should understand the risks. And the lawyer in question actually apologized for her using the technology without fully understanding the implications. Also, AI chats are being used in schools. So one of the schools in New Hampshire developed an AI chat based on ChatGPT. However, it's basically limited. So it doesn't provide you all the answers. It doesn't write essays for you, but it prompts the student to apply critical thinking. It asks more questions. So it acts like a teacher to make the student think and to make the student come up with the answers themselves while giving them hints. And then there's also the fear of deepfakes. We know that 2024 is the biggest year for elections. There are more than 50 elections around the world, and the countries are afraid of deepfakes. And there was a case recently in the US where there was a robocall impersonating Joe Biden that went out to New Hampshire voters, advising them not to vote this time and saying, save your vote for the November election, which was a deepfake. And deepfakes have been going around and have already affected some of the other countries as well. So, for example, in Slovakia, AI-generated audio recordings of one of the candidates circulated on Facebook impersonating a liberal candidate discussing plans to raise alcohol prices and rig the election. So this is a real concern for lots of the countries. There was in February 2023 Nigerian elections, an AI manipulated audio clip falsely implicated a presidential candidate in plans to manipulate the elections, basically. This is very big concern for lots of countries. And obviously there are other concerns like biased outputs that have been discussed previously, and the jailbreak potential. So especially with ChatGPT releasing APIs to be able to build the tools on top of it, nearly all the chat interfaces built upon ChatGPT have been susceptible to jailbreaking. So if you think about it, for instance, if someone developed a mental health application, which already has lots of issues, and then there were malicious individuals that broke it, they could potentially elicit inappropriate responses and expose some confidential data based on your answers. So that is a huge issue as well. And I just wanted to mention this tool, How Normal Am I, released by EU long time ago, just when the AI ethics community was trying to get everyone's attention to the requirements of the policies. This tool was released where you can see how facial recognition systems are currently judging you and providing scores for you based on your facial features. So, and how you, like I tried this tool and I was rated as wildly average based on the facial recognitions of dating apps, because lots of the data is based on a certain type of facial features. And in terms of the policy landscape, as the previous speaker mentioned, EU AI Act is one of the main documents currently existing that is being voted on and being discussed extensively. And US has previously had a free approach, but now they're going into regulation. But they're getting very like state-based, so different states have their regulations. So it's I think they're working on consolidation, but it's a bit challenging. So they released a bill related to the use of artificial intelligence by public bodies. UK has been trying to adopt the pro-innovation approach, and then China has released certain regulations based on AI technologies, so deep synthesis, algorithmic recommendation systems specific to technologies. UN has established the high-level advisory board, and ISO has released standards as well. There are lots of actually digital policy trackers and alert systems that actually track these really well, so they're good to keep an eye on. The AI policy area, specifically for my area, that is IEEE, we have ontologies that are openly available in transparency, accountability, algorithmic bias, and privacy, that are good to study and see what areas are checked. But usually when AI systems are assessed, there a lot of times are risk-based assessments. So you would have, you would understand the risk profile of an application, and then you would apply what kind of mitigation measures are needed for that system. Yeah, and I think it was previously discussed that facial recognition systems, self-driving cars are one of the biggest discussions around AI. I just wanted to talk about social media algorithms. There is a big area around that for policymakers as well. Why, for example, social media algorithms are affecting our critical judgment and critical thinking, because there are things like filter bubbles and echo chambers that we get affected in. So when we talk about filter bubbles, is that if some person likes videos of cats, they will be exposed to more videos of cats. So you kind of start living in your own bubble of what you believe in, which makes so you're not exposed to the opposite thinking. You just keep being reintroduced to something that you believe in. And echo chambers, usually if you believe in something, you follow or you like the people who believe in the same things. So you end up in this so-called echo chamber of everyone echoing the same content. So this is dangerous in terms of critical thinking, in terms of you being exposed to only certain types of content, because something like AI exacerbates these results. That is why a lot of we can see from the cases against Facebook, against TikTok, how, well, they weren't that successful, but there are lawsuits that are being filed against social media, like the big tech companies, trying to protect the consumers. And especially like EU is the biggest consumer market, which is why they have one of the biggest and strictest acts and regulations like GDPR and EU AI Act in the world. In general, AI should complement teaching, and it should not replace anything entirely. So we don't want it to replace anything. We want it to help us as a tool. There are, in education, there are examples, but I'm sure it has been talked about as well. But like bias and algorithmic grading, there was a huge case in UK where the gradings were unfair, and then using AI-powered tutors and chatbots, while it's great and you can get a personalized content, over-reliance on technology can create its own issues as well, and it's important to reinforce creativity, human interaction, critical thinking in students, in yourself as well. So these are the things that we should keep in mind. And then obviously, as previously been talked, facial recognition systems have lots of questions around them as well. But also, inclusion is really important. So as we go into more AI development and technology development, we need to understand that not everyone has access to the same type of technologies. While some students might have iPads and laptops and mobile phones, some people might not. And they don't have this degree of exposure to this technology, to the latest technologies, to maybe some resources. So it's important when we're talking about education within this current environment, it's important to keep in mind that we should have future-ready and inclusive curriculums as well, and be very inclusive and understanding towards different diversity of the population that we have. One of the oldest cases about this was that one city implemented pothole fixing based on smartphones, and it ended up that the good areas, the wealthy areas of the city were fixed, but the poorer areas were not, because the people there didn't have good mobile coverage, they didn't have good internet, they didn't have really good mobile phones, so they couldn't report the same potholes to the same extent as the other areas. So these kind of inclusivity questions should always be in our minds when we're talking about new technologies. And I just want to wrap up just saying that it's really important to be responsible users and developers of AI. As it becomes more integrated in our lives, we more likely will be interacting with it more. So it's really important to know what we're interacting with, how we're interacting, what might be the results, what are the risks, and just be aware of it. It's important to keep critical thinking. So the more influence we have, the more information we get, and the more technology influences our choices, we should keep our critical thinking and judge the content we consume. And then obviously future-proofing your careers, to think about how AI ethics can be embedded. It shouldn't be something aside of development or technology. It should be embedded in the design of it. It should be embedded in our thoughts. If we are trying to be responsible consumers in anything, we should be the advocates for ethical use and responsible use and deployment of AI systems. So the future of AI is not predetermined. It's up to us. It's up to the next generation of innovators and users to shape how AI will impact the world. So I think everything is in your hands. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you to all the speakers of the section 1. We have come to the end of the first section of this forum, and there is one question in the Q&A from Yurasil. If the life is the sum of our choices, and what we have heard from our guest speakers at Tsinghua University about AI having a potential risk for causing accidental existential harm to humans, what should we do so that the sum of our choices converges to a happy end?
Others might like to jump in here, but I think the biggest danger with where we are right now is that we don't understand where this could go. We don't understand all the consequences. And so there's a risk that we make really consequential decisions without understanding what the implications are of it. So we walk through one-way doors without understanding that we've just walked through a one-way door. And then I think combined with that is another analogy which is maybe useful here is that, and you may have heard this before, but there's an analogy about a boiling frog that, you know, if you were to throw, I like frogs, so I haven't got anything against frogs, but the analogy is that if you throw a frog into a pot of boiling water, it's going to try and jump out straight away. Okay? But if you were to put a frog into cold water and then were to heat the water over time, then it will get to the point where the frog is thinking, oh, okay, this is nice, then it's getting a bit too hot, and then ultimately it gets past the point where it can do anything about it. And I think that that's one of the risks that we have to be just so aware of right now, that it could be really easy to keep walking through one-way doors without really understanding the consequences and end up in a situation where we find it's too late. You know, we can't actually go back. We can't change this because it's not reversible. And so keeping in mind that there are two-way doors where, because we have to try things, but there are also one-way doors where once we've made our decision, once we've walked through that door, we're not going to be able to go back. We have to try and understand the difference. And for those one-way doors, we want to spend as much time as we possibly can making the best decision that we can before we walk through the door.
And maybe other speakers, what do you think about this question?
If I may add, what concerns me about the whole AI coverage, the coverage of AI in the media, is that the scare of this technology was here for a while. Like, if we remember all of those dystopian novels that were published back in 50s and 40s, like considering the Dune that was just released and this whole jihad about thinking technologies over there, people were thinking about that for a long time. And what I am concerned about is considering that the media really wants to make this huge titles, clickbait titles, they exaggerate the fear of AI so much that the people are like, here is AI and here is what they're talking about. But there is a gap between them. So what concerns me is not what we might like what it can bring to, but the whole craziness about this technology, like people are talking about another AI winter and they talk about some existential crisis, but without full understanding what the technology is. So I just hope that this whole thing will slow down because of the issues with natural resources or energy, so that we could really kind of step down and read more about it and understand. Because when I explain to the students who work at ESI what are the building blocks of even ChatGPT, they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. That makes sense. And it's no longer scary. But because it's so hard, there's such a big gap of understanding what is built on, it it can really appear scary. And so many media outlets are really exemplifying this whole thing. And this is what concerns me, is that people are going to this rabbit hole about the issues of AI without understanding where we actually stand at this point and what the technology is really about.
One thing I might add is I think the important part is responsible consumption of technology. Each person should take responsibility for how they use, how they develop, and what they do with AI. As AI became more like you can access it easier, you can develop chats or you can develop apps better. Every person should take responsibility on what they develop, what kind of risks that might have. They should assess the application of it. Because I've seen so many people around me jumping into certain use cases, and when I hear it, I'm like, okay, so you want to apply this chat to children, but have you checked certain things that you should check for? And when we're using certain AI tools as well, maybe we should, because we are paying the money or we are paying the data, so maybe we should have our due diligence of what we're actually using and not use certain malicious tools that might be released to just get our data, or it might be used for malicious intents. So I think it's just taking responsibility about what we consume is important.
Yeah, I'd actually like to piggyback off what Akmarel just said. I think, though this analogy is not the same, what I'm about to say, like we know that social media, this is a different thing, not AI. We know that social media can be detrimental to specific groups and even to anybody depending on the usage, right? And I'm not saying that AI is also detrimental in the same way, but it is something that we don't understand fully the same way we don't understand social media fully. And so you should also be conscious of how you use it. I also agree. And I think especially when it revolves around people who are vulnerable groups, people whose brains haven't developed yet, young students or specific groups, as in several presentations we saw, AI only represents some people, and also the way it doesn't necessarily have a moral compass written into it. So we also have to think with our own. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, we will be moving on to section 2, as we are still behind schedule. Behind schedule would be the word for it. So thank you very much to our dear speakers from section 1. They're wonderful sessions. The topics that we discuss in AI in education. And now moving on to section 2. It is fully dedicated to inclusivity in the education in the era of AI. That is to say that we ask the question of how possible is it to maintain equality, let alone equity, in the volatile age that we're living in. And this section speaker is the founder and CEO of Teach for Kazakhstan, Gulnara Salmian. She'll be discussing how we can achieve this equity in education in today's world. Okay. Okay, just a moment. We'll give it to you. Yeah. Just a moment while we fix this
Okay,
issue.
can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Great. Okay, can you see my screen presentation?
Yeah, we can. It's loading.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much. Just to checking sound and the presentation, because I'm connecting from Karaganda and not sure about the quality of internet well here. So good afternoon. We're glad to be here as a part of the speakers in this conference, in this forum. My name is Gulnara Salmeno, and I'm also the graduate alumna of Graduate School of Education, I think from 2014. And it's always an honor to be at Nazarbayev University platform, environment. So today I will be speaking about fostering equity in education, especially in the project of Teach for Kazakhstan project. Teach for Kazakhstan is actually, I am actually founder and the CEO currently. And Teach for Kazakhstan is a non-governmental organization, it's a public foundation. And as a public foundation, we believe that every child, no matter where he was born or no matter where he lives, he has a right to quality of education and to fulfill his potential. So the whole idea of Teach for Kazakhstan is to help the child in Kazakhstan to fulfill his potential and to get quality education. So we, as a public foundation, we actually invite, select, train, and support teachers, especially those who don't have educational background. So we look for engineers, we look for economists, we look for managers who want to be a teacher, who really want to bring change in educational system through teaching in schools in the remote areas for 2 years to close the disparity between rural and urban places. So in order to achieve that, we look for the leaders who really can become like the real role model for children, and of course with the mission to fulfill their potential, and of course to become mentored, to tell them about different opportunities, and to help them to get more academic achievements. So maybe you will ask, why do we need to do that in our Kazakhstan? When we speak about inclusion, and I am as a former teacher of English language, and I worked at Nazarbayev intellectual schools, did my master's at Nazarbayev University, and I personally live it in a bubble, thinking that Kazakhstan is like that, is like the same bubble where I used to be. But now doing this project, I see that Kazakhstan is so polar. Everyone lives in their own bubbles, so-called. And the number says that currently we have about 7,000 schools, 7,600 schools, and about 5,000 of that is in the rural areas. So you can imagine that schools that are located in the rural areas has different context, has different challenges. So moreover, about 44% of the children, we have about 3.5 more million children, and 44% of them lives in the rural area. So there is a huge disparity between in educational quality, in educational inequity. Actually, there is huge inequity among the students in our country. So here's some numbers you can see, but we as a public foundation eager to create a community of leaders, collective leadership, who have enough knowledge, competencies, and skills to shorten that disparity between urban and rural areas, and to be aware of this problem as educational inequity, And of course, those people who have that type of experience in their life, in the further life, they will make different decisions. They will do different projects that will help to actually bring the difficulties in education or general in society of our country. So as a public foundation, of course, we cannot, as you can see, there is like several factors of the inequity that we have in education, but we as an organization cannot really impact to the social and economical factors, because we do not build roads, you know, we do not like install internet, or we don't buy desks and so on. But we really as a people can impact to the face, because a lot of children in the rural areas believe that they cannot do that because nobody have done that in their lives, or they do certain things because their uncle from the city said so, or they do certain things because that's the only thing that they have heard in their life. So bringing the quality people, those who are about education, who want to, like those leaders, bringing them to the rural areas, we really can impact to the face factor and change some stereotypical thinking, girls' education also considering that. So that's the thing that where we want to impact. We as a public foundation is a part of the global network Teach for All. So as you might have heard about Teach for America, Teach for China, Teach for India, Teach for Pakistan. So all over the world, there is 63 independent partner organizations. We are not franchise. We are really independent partners. So Teach for All doesn't impact any strategical decisions that we make. They don't give us money, but they help us be together to get as much information as we can get from each other, to learn from each other. So we actually became part of as independent partner in June 20, like last year. So and of course we can have the like our graduates, those who will graduate our fellowship, will become part of the global alumni, and they of course can bring a lot of innovations from other countries, and also bring like innovative projects to other countries also. So which, you know, like in Kazakhstan, as I said, there are a lot of schools, but we as a organization, as a fellowship program, we work with the schools that are in a challenging or difficult context. And when we say that, we really mean the schools that locate in the regions, districts, villages, in the remote areas. And of course, with those schools that are open to changes, schools that are they who have students with low motivation engagement, those who have like average academic results as a school. And also by the challenging context, we mean the very disadvantaged districts, like marginalized one, where you can find probably the single parent families, low living standards, parents without higher education, and in general, the low parent involvement. That's all which is actually considered as a challenging context, where we send our fellows to work for 2 years. So basically we take, for example, we invite I think I have missed one. Okay, present slide. Okay, I don't have one slide, but I will say it by so for basically what we do, we recruit, first of all, as much people as we can. For example, we find engineer who can be based on his diploma, bachelor diploma, physics teacher or math teacher. So he goes through the selection. Selection considers 4 stages that where we check their motivation, competencies, and skills, and the values also. And then they go through the PGCE program, like postgraduate certificate of education. So they get new profession as a teacher of physics or teacher of mathematics, and then they are placed in rural areas for 2 years. And we believe, of course, as an like one person really cannot change the thing in a school. like any like cannot change so much in school. That's why we place at least 3, 5, 7 fellows to one school, because in the rural areas there is a huge shortage of teachers because of the huge urbanization, which actually leads to the extinction of those small villages or districts, remote areas, and like those children who are there, they usually do not have adequate adult who can really help to fulfill potential of the child. So those who get selected, they go through the matriculation program. This is something like induction program. We have like postgraduate certificate, like education with Süleyman Demirel University SDU, where we do the online part, where our fellows study psychology, teaching methods, instructional design, and all these things related to teaching. We have summer camp. We have summer camp for children where they have their first teaching practices with children. And then, of course, in the end examination of after all of this program, they can go to the schools to teach for 2 years. And during this 2 years time, we do tutor support, we do coaching support, we do we like give them teacher leader who help them to make lesson plans, to assess students' work in like during the whole 2 years time. And of course, the whole idea of the project to bring the change and to strengthen the communities where those schools are, to help those schools to become more independent, and of course build the movement, the communities that are aware about educational inequity and really can change and bring change to shorten this. So this is the fellows of our first cohort. Currently, we have 30 fellows in 10 schools of Karaganda region, and we work in the schools of Токаревка, Новодолинка, Новоузенка, Шахтинск, поселок Конрад. What else? So we work about in 7 locations, about 10 schools where a lot of like engineers, economists become teachers. We have one graduate from Nazarbayev University who graduated from biotechnology. Now she's the science teacher and biology teacher. And these guys already working, and currently I am like connecting from Karaganda because we are doing selection for the second cohort. And we will of course place them to the Karaganda region, and step by step we will, like the whole aim is to enlarge the number of the fellows and to be in a very remote areas to again to help to fulfill children's potential and shorten the educational inequity. So these are the organizations that support us. We don't take any money, any sponsorship from government. So I do personally a lot of fundraising things. So these are the organizations that support us a lot. And our partners, those organizations who help us actually to do a lot of things together. So our selection, for example, is developed with the HRs from the HR Association of Kazakhstan. For example, SDU University helped us to develop the educational program, and like so on and so forth. And this is the short information about us. If you're like interested in, I think I'm ready to answer your questions. So okay. Okay, I get him. Okay, great. Please do apply to us because we are really looking for the leaders who can share and who have things to give to children. And I want to note something. We are not there to help them or to save them from something or from their parents. We are there to give things to them so they can fulfill, I mean, children fulfill their potential and have different life path. So that's very important because children are okay no matter where they are in general. So we like need to go there with the different perception and intention. not with the arrogance, because there were some fellows who, not fellows, like the candidates who were like saying that I will go there, I will save them, I will help them, I will show them that they are not okay. We as a public foundation are against of that type of approach. We think that everyone who lives, no matter where, they are fine, and that's not the approach that we need to take. It's us who goes there and tries to show how life can be different with their behavior and with their treatment. That's much important, and we do not apply the top-down approach. So it's more about learning from those communities. And to tell the truth, I personally, even like being in the education sector about 15 years, I am personally learning a lot from these people, and to see how they actually how they are doing a lot in order to give those children quality education. We don't have, like, we have the portal, we have platform, I would say, where we keep all the information related to our candidates from the beginning of their journey when they apply to our project till the end. So that's what we use for now. Maybe our fellows, but I know that some fellows use artificial intelligence, those ChatGPT, for planning their lessons, to draw some interesting pictures and so on, so they can actually attract and engage students more. That's they do for sure. But as a public foundation, we are not so much about artificial intelligence, but just, yeah. Cool.
Okay, thank you. And once again, we're reminding that the Microsoft Team chat will be open even after this live discussion ends. So if you have any questions or you want to get more information about Teach for Kazakhstan, you may text it there in the chat. So now we're closing our second section and moving to our last and third and last section for today. We'll be discussing the possibility and ways to preserve and maintain academic integrity in this AI-filled era that we're living in. The speaker who will be opening our last section is a valued member of the European Student Union and a senior assistant at the Faculty for Biotechnology and Drug Development at the University of Rijeka, Croatia, Peggy Pavletic. Today we'll be sharing her expertise on the topic of students' views on the use of artificial intelligence in education, including discussions on academic integrity in AI, the use of AI in the admissions process, and the cases of unfair denials from admission committees. So without further ado, Peggy, we now turn the floor over to you.
Thank you so much. I will share just my presentation now. Okay. So thank you for having me. I hope you can see the presentation well. As mentioned, I'm Peggy. I come from Rijeka, and I really enjoy working on academic integrity. And it's really my pleasure to be here for the third year in a row. And I'm always very inspired by the Kazakhstani students and how much you do and invest in it. So when asked this year about what I could present, I mentioned this topic because I think that artificial intelligence is something that's kind of a growing topic right now. And I wanted to present a little bit about it from the perspective of my university students. So just kind of to give a small note that I will refer mostly to the practices at UNIRI, which is the University of Rijeka, where I currently work. And we will mention some of the policies on the European level, but also something in regard to the policies at the University of Rijeka and how do they deal with the incorporation of artificial intelligence. So policies and documents that are available on the European level for us on artificial intelligence now includes the EU AI Act, I don't know if you heard about it, but it's quite a recent addition to the policies in terms of the artificial intelligence. So in this act, there are different types of definitions related to artificial intelligence, but also there are mentions about the integrity and the use of such services. So there we also define what kind of is a generative AI, and this is something that will be mostly covered through this presentation. It is basically software that's able to generate different types of contents, whether it's text-based content, video, different types of images, etc. And I also wanted to mention the recommendations for the use of artificial intelligence, which were made by the European Network for Academic Integrity. And these are kind of the recommendations that came prior to this Artificial Intelligence Act, but relying on something which is the EU Artificial Intelligence Pact. This is the document that actually preceded the implementation of the EU AI Act. It was kind of, let's say, a pilot where they wanted to test some of the things that are incorporated into the future policy, which is to become the EU AI Act, together with some partners from the industry to see and evaluate how effective in practice this policy should be and whether there's something necessary to augment it. In this document, so the EU AI Act, you can find 4 different levels of risks concerning the use of artificial intelligence. So there is minimal or no risk, then a limited risk, high risk, and unacceptable level of risk. So here I wanted just to show some of the examples of these types of risks. So minimal risk or no risk is related to some kind of AI tools or programs in which actually there is a wide variety of applications, and it's considered that there's low threat in using such tools. And this could be, for example, the AI-enabled video games, or if you know these spam filters that appear through your emails, or this can be, for example, automatic generation of backgrounds on different types of conferencing platforms, etc. Then there is this limited risk, which is associated with transparent use of AI technologies, which basically means that even if you use minimal risk AI technology, it could become a limited risk. For example, if you start collecting data, or for example, if the AI software is pulling information from a software that is in any way protected, then this could have some kind of limited risk associated with the use of such a tool. The biggest part of this act is actually dedicated
It seems that the Balotish is experiencing a technical difficulty. Are you still here? We can't hear you.
We know that in education.
Oh, okay, it's this back. No, we can't hear you, Peggy Balotish. If you can hear us.
Acceptable examples of risks, for example, some.
How should I do it?
Peggy, you're frozen. We don't hear you.
Of transparency and to minimize this high risk. And if any substantial
Peggy, we don't hear you. You're frozen.
It is defined
We
that
hear
AI.
you by. Peggy, do you
Sorry?
hear us?
Yes.
I think we missed the last slide because we didn't hear you.
Sorry.
The last 1-2 minutes. Sorry.
Maybe there's an issue with the connection.
It's okay. It's okay.
This slide. Did you see this one?
Yes, right now we hear you and we see the slide. Thank you.
Okay, so sorry. So these are some high risk. So if there is a provider of the software that poses a high risk in the use of artificial intelligence, then they will have to be certified. And if anything changes in regards to their compliance to these standards later, they will have to reappeal and redo the process in order to mitigate, in a way, this risk. The ENI recommendations for the use of AI, they are available online. And also they mentioned that there are challenges, but also opportunities when speaking of the use of AI tools. And it also mentions that all persons, sources, and tools that influence the ideas or generate the content should be acknowledged. However, the AI itself cannot take responsibility for the content that it produces, as it is a software, which means that it cannot be listed as a co-author, for example, but you would have to acknowledge it somewhere else in the paper, probably in the acknowledgements at the end of it. Also, it's mentioned that the students should actually be educated on the proper use of artificial intelligence in order to prevent its misuse. And also there should be developed some national guidelines on how to deal with things related to artificial intelligence, especially in the context of academic integrity, research integrity, but also the integrity of the society. These are the examples of the AI policies at the University of Rijeka. So they have developed the policy for the use of AI tools, which are quite good and which started at the beginning of 2024. And they kind of define what is artificial intelligence in their context. And they developed it together with the Council of Honor and with the ethical committees at the university. And they see two main functions of this artificial intelligence. So one is for the use in teaching, where, for example, it's integrated into curriculums, in preparation of exams, virtual assistants, etc., or in the provision of innovation in learning. So, for example, in data mining, brainstorming, writing theses or conclusions on some researches, revision, coding, etc. They see main four advantages for the use of AI. So one is increase in production efficiency, and there is the personalization and recommendations that are based on AI suggestions. But they're also using it for the mass data analysis and complex problem solutions. And this is all encircled in a way by the applicability and the range and the variety of the AI tools that are available for the students. So they're mentioning that AI needs to be based on principles that rely on justness, on honesty, integrity, and accountability, not just of the individuals, but institutional as well. And that there should be some respect of the policies and legal acts. And also they mentioned that the data that AI provides needs to be robust, accurate, and they have to be technically safe. And as well, they need to be evidence-based, of course, and checked. And they also mentioned that there is good use for the AI tools in research, teaching, and professional work, as well as publishing, editing, and reviews based on integrity. Other ethical principles apply here, of course, for example, like the conflict of interest, the legitimacy of the results, intellectual property, etc. What's really also impressive for this university is they took it kind of a step further, even before the EU AI Act came into place, where they mentioned that they have a policy of no safety, no usage, meaning if they consider that applying certain AI tool would bring unsafety, let's say, within the system, they would just decide not to use this tool. And also they mentioned that there should be a certain caution related to health. This doesn't have to be physical health, but also mental health, of course, then public security and environment. So this is all taken into account by the university. But also this presentation relies on the reflections from the students. And here I had many discussions with students ombudspersons. So these are students that represent students in different types of disciplinary or ethical processes. And they mentioned that they participate in all levels of governance, which means that they also participated not only in writing, but now also in the implementation of this AI Act. And they also, we know that the students in Croatia on a general level have very high level of digital literacy. In 2019, actually, they had the highest digital literacy in Europe, meaning that they're very well adapted to the use of AI technologies, and they accept it very broadly. And also the students ombudsperson told us that the students use AI not only in writing their assignments, but also, for example, when they are applying to the faculties, so for the application processes and writing their CVs, motivation letters, etc. And they find these tools to be extremely helpful, available, it saves their time, it's based on general knowledge or public knowledge, and they don't consider that this is a big problem, because students generally do believe that if something's on the internet, and you find 2 or 3 sources saying that this is it, then probably it is like that. However, they don't take into account the perception of risk associated with this information that they actually collect. So students generally mention that they use artificial intelligence due to the peer competitiveness, meaning that if they can use AI to be or to stand out among their colleagues, then this is quite an important thing for them, and they would most certainly use it. And also they mentioned that there is a bigger stress from year to year on them, because there is a constantly increasing educational standard, but also educational load on them. And AI kind of helps them categorize this, put this in certain boxes, let's say, and helps them gain this knowledge faster and maybe on a level that's that allows them better understanding or easier understanding. Also, they're quite attracted with the use of these digital tools and technologies, including AI. And of course, they want to minimize the effort that they need to put in order to get certain output that's asked from them at the university. They also mentioned that for the use of AI tools, you don't actually need some broad experience, because the tool itself will provide you with certain knowledge if you don't know it. And this was a little bit concerning to us, especially in terms of, let's say, coding, because we found that students who actually need to do coding can just generate these codes by themselves. So they feel like there's no need to learn this, because in a few years, everyone will be doing coding through artificial intelligence. They also find that they get a solution in an easy way, and also if all their colleagues do it, so the peer approval is there, the students are more likely to do it. Or if the student doesn't really like to use it, but then he's the only person that isn't using it, then they will most likely adopt this behavior as well. There are certain risks that student representatives and the students ombudspersons saw in relation to the use of artificial intelligence, and one is the lack of understanding policies on academic integrity, and also education on the use of these AI tools. So until this year, there were no guidelines for them on how to use these tools. But they also find that there is a lack of awareness for this ethical use, and not only from the student population, but from the teachers as well. So they also mentioned that they pass more quickly the knowledge between themselves, and now they're most connected on WhatsApp. And the students don't actually speak about artificial intelligence in the context of academic integrity. So this is quite limited. They don't know about the role of students ombudsman as well, and it's hard to reach students regarding this topic. But they also find that the teachers actually don't communicate about these things, or some teachers do, but they do it voluntarily. So they find that in general, there aren't many preventive measures, but there aren't any punitive measures as well, because it's quite a new technology and the policies at university are not being updated so quickly. So what students would like to see is actually to popularize topics related to academic integrity, which would also include artificial intelligence. And they see that AI should be involved already in the curricula for all the subjects, or at least consider how it can impact the learning process within a certain curricula. And also regarding the content that's in between, let's say, the academic integrity and the artificial intelligence use. And they also find that there should be further support provided for the students in order to understand these topics much better. And one of the main things that they mentioned is that if they see that the professors are not holding on to these things, for example, if they're using AI-generated images in their presentations, but they're not crediting it, why should they credit it? Because it's, let's say, a unique image created for themselves, so they don't see the need for it. And in general, that's my presentation. I really apologize for my lack of internet. I hope that you are still able to follow, but if not in any way, I will share this presentation.
Okay, it seems unfortunate that, actually, it's kind of fortunate that it only broke out towards the end after breaking up in the middle. Thank you for your presentation, Peggy Papatic, once again. It's okay, technical difficulties come and go, no one can escape them. Now, moving on, our second to last speaker for today is a biotechnologist and an expert in research, innovation, and the internalization of higher education in the USA, Damiel Mektibayeva. She actively showcases an initiative in women's rights and leadership. Specifically, the next topic will be about their effects, the effects of AI when applied in the university.
Okay. Hi, guys. Could you tell me, do you see the screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, great. Microsoft is kind of confusing for me. Okay, thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. It's kind of early here, but I'm still here, so I'm thankful for that. So I'm sure you talked today, you heard a lot about education and about AI. And in my part, I want to go over some of the benefits and the 4 benefits that we have in the application system, as I've been working in the higher education application system for more than a decade. And of course, there are some 4 inherent drawbacks that come along with the AI usage. Okay, first of all, we should admit that AI brings super enhanced efficiency for the whole application process. And it helps not only the students, but the universities as well. So it reduces all the paperwork and the manual work that we need to do. And for the universities, universities use it for document verification, for the application review, and of course for faster communication. Students, we know, students use it for writing documents. But here I need to make a special note that I believe that specifically for ChatGPT, I believe that we can use it for many things, as brainstorming, as getting feedback, or checking our grammar, or improving our writing abilities. But at the same time, when we use algorithm for writing, we lose the whole idea of learning. And here I want to give you some example to prove that. So, for example, you are a construction engineer and you need to build a house. If you use some super enhanced technology to build the house, of course, you get the result. So you reach the result that you want, but at the same time, you lose the whole knowledge. So you will not acquire all the knowledge needed for the process of building the house, right? So the same thing happens with writing. If you use algorithm for writing purposes, of course you will have your essay, you will have your personal statement, but you will lose the whole idea of learning. And most importantly, universities use the programs to detect using algorithms, first of all, and secondly, even with the naked eye, you still can see. It takes like approximately 1 minute for the admission officer to take a look at the essay and say for sure, tell for sure if ChatGPT was used in writing such document. Okay. Second positive thing about using algorithm, I want to mention that nowadays there are some startups, some projects where you can use algorithm to do personalized recommendations based on the profile of the student, the academic records, and preferences, achievements of the student. And it really helps to get the perfect fit for the academic and career aspirations. I really like this one because also it enhances it streamlines that admission process and helps to make it more faster, I guess, and faster to find the right thing. The third one is that universities use it for data-driven decision-making, and because universities can use and leverage AI to analyze like big amount of documents that universities receive during the application process and identify some trends or patterns and make decisions for the next cohort, for the next changing scholarships criteria or admission criteria or some program offerings. And of course, such data-driven decision-making, it minimizes biases and enhances transparency in the whole admission process. And lastly, which I want to point out is, of course, the 24/7 support and assistance of AI. So everybody gets tired except of AI. So the positive thing is that AI chatbots, virtual assistants, that they can provide the 24/7 support for the applicants regarding some questions and inquiries. And again, it provides a seamless experience, not only for students from this particular area, but across different time zones. But however, as AI brings some positive things, it also goes along with some negative drawbacks. And first of all, it's a loss of human touch. So I believe that when a student communicates with chatbots or algorithms, it doesn't give this personalized communication, and probably a student can get some false impression about the university or institution culture. So applicant can miss this personalized interaction with admission officers. Secondly, it It's a privacy issue, of course. So AI systems and algorithms, they gather a lot of sensitive information. Unfortunately, there can be risks and leakages of such information. They can lead to identity thefts and misuses. Next one is over-reliance on algorithms. So if we use AI for admission process, unfortunately, it cannot detect such an intangible aspects such as creativity, resilience, and passion. We still need humans to identify that. So if we over-rely on algorithms, we can create the homogenized student cohorts, and we can actually neglect the holistic assessment of the student. And lastly, I already mentioned that is the technical limitations and errors. They can happen. So due to some technical glitches and errors, there can be leakages of informations, and of course, there can be some misinterpretations. And as well as, unfortunately, when we use such technologies, for some students, it can be hard to detect that some problem in the admission process was done, and of course to argue that there was a problem in the admission process and that the selection process was wrong. So I guess it will be hard to prove that such error was done for the student. So that's the last one, the last drawback that I want to mention. And if you want to talk more about admission process and how you can use AI in the process of application, please contact me, and I will be very happy to talk to you about that.
Thank you. There are questions, but we have the last speaker, and at the end we can ask questions to all of the three speakers of the section. Now, let's welcome our last speaker for today, Aysel Ibadullah, a research scholar at the Harvard Health Systems and Innovation Center in the USA. Today, Aysel, who is a proud graduate of Nazarbayev University School of Medicine, will be discussing the topic of how can researchers and students effectively use AI in their work while adhering to ethical principles. Aysel, if you're here, we invite you to take the stage and share your knowledge on this topic. Okay, so while we're waiting for our last speaker, let's look at the questions for Daniel and Peggy. There is a question from Bata Altunkhanova. Considering your insights on students' views regarding the use of AI in education, how do students perceive the balance between the benefits and potential ethical concerns of AI in learning environments? And what recommendations do they have for integrating AI technologies in a way that enhances educational outcomes while safeguarding academic integrity and privacy?
Excuse me, that's for me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I believe that, and Peggy also mentioned that students actually don't know how they can use the AI and if they are allowed to use. So usually universities doesn't give any precise and accurate guidelines of how they can use the AI. So that's kind of the problem. But I would mention that we can use ChatGPT or AI for many things, as I told, for brainstorming, for getting feedback, but we cannot use it to do your work, right? So you cannot use it to produce work that you say it's your own work. That's the idea. And if you talk to admission officers to many US universities, they are not against of using ChatGPT in the writing process. They are not against it. They say use it for brainstorming, for double checking, but not for writing your whole essay. Because when you read such essay, you can say it like with 1 minute that it is done with the help of the ChatGPT because of the words, vocabulary, the sentence structure. You can see it right through. So I would advise to, of course, we cannot prohibit using this open technologies, right? Because they are allowed, they are open, but to use it in a wise way and not to lose the whole idea of learning while using such technologies. I really like one comparison. Sorry, one more thing. I really like this one comparison about the athletes. Like you can ask an athlete to run, for example, 10 kilometers, right? For example, I'm a coach and I'm asking an athlete to run 10 kilometers. The idea of me asking him to run so that he trains his muscles, right? So if this athlete takes a car and gets there in 10 kilometers, he will be there. He's done his work, but his muscles are not trained, right? So he used the technology to do the whole work, right? So he lost the whole idea of learning. That's why I think that's a great analogy that I heard personally on the conference, that we cannot use AI to do our own work. Hopefully I answered the question.
Thank you for your answer. Yeah, there are 2 more questions in the Q&A section. If you can access it, you may choose one of those 2 questions and answer the one you'd like to answer. Or if you cannot access, I may read for you.
Okay. What advance? So it's the last question, right? It's the last question in the chat. So the one from Nazir Kia, she asked, how can schools advance AI literacy? Is there a way for students to push forward this idea to the university? You know, I think that advancing in AI literacy, it comes naturally. So students just learn by themselves how to use the technologies. And what I can see, and from the recent research, more than half of the teachers at higher level, like from the grades 9 through 11, they are against of using technologies. They are against of using AI in the education system, based on some research in here in US. So I guess we also need to change the experience of attitude and of teachers, first of all, so that they become not against of the technologies, first of all. And I don't know, to promote AI literacy, because we will use it anyway, right? Like we cannot stop the whole process. So we just need to admit that our students will do it. And the best way is to try to, I agree, to try to advance AI literacy and help students use AI to promote learning, not to how to say, not to go around the learning process. And I guess it's some I don't know, it should go, right now it goes like bottom up approach, but I guess there should be some top down approach as well.
Thank you very much for your answers. Peggy, are you with us?
Okay, so we will be waiting for our next speaker in a short while. She'll be here. We can go to a quick question, one more. If AI become, it's a question from the Q&A forum from Evgenia. If AI becomes the principal course, oh wait, no, that's the wrong one. Sorry. This one. If it becomes the course designer, do you think it will limit the creativity of students who are different from the typical students in the past?
Excuse me. Is it going to limit creativity?
Yeah, the creativity of assignments, works done.
I don't think it can limit creativity. At least for now, it lacks creativity. So if you give the task, for example, to ChatGPT, it will give a pretty predictable essay or predictable answer, right? It profoundly lacks creativity, and that's how admission officers actually distinguish person work and AI work. So I don't believe it can limit person's like creativity of the process. And I believe that we need to nurture creativity, right, nowadays, because AI in the future, in 5-10 years, it will be able to do a lot of work. So the whole technology will increase with time. So it will be able to do a lot of tasks. And our task for now is to nurture as much human skills as possible, so that we have that in our pocket, right? And I guess that's a task for future teachers.
Yeah, I agree with you. I also think that creativity is even more important in today's age because the individuality of people, especially with just the number of the population on Earth growing, it becomes more and more important for a person to stand out by having specific skills or a specific mindset that cannot be replicated in different people. So
Agree, totally agree. Could I ask a question to students here, like while we are waiting? If you personally used, if you guys, you students, used ChatGPT for writing purposes? Like, could you give some reaction if you did?
Of course, yeah, we did use.
Yes, so everybody does that. So you see, it's like this process is unstoppable. You cannot prohibit people from doing it, right? So we just need to go with it and try to manage the whole process so that we still have learning left.
Oh, just quickly, is Asil Ivadula here? I can't see her in the attendees list. I guess not. Okay. Well, we can keep going with more questions. Oh, there she is. Welcome.
Okay, then our last speaker is here. Let's introduce her once again. Today, Aseli Badullah, who is a biotechnologist and, oh, I'm sorry, who is a research scholar at the Harvard Health Systems and Innovation Center in the USA. and who is also a proud graduate of the Nazarbayev University School of Medicine. We'll be discussing the topic of how can researchers and students effectively use AI in their work while also adhering to ethical principles. Sid, please take the stage.
Oh,
Your
I
microphone
said
is
you're.
off.
Yeah.
Hello to everyone. Can you hear me well? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not frequent user of Teams, so it's my first time sharing my presentation. Yeah, let me find out what should I press. Just a second.
I had the same problems. Not used to using Microsoft.
Yes. Okay, sharing.
This is what unites all of us.
I'm so sorry. But can you help me? What shall I do in order to share my presentation?
It's in the upper part, upper right part.
Yes, it says
the same sign as in Zoom.
Yes, it says like stand out, side by side. Which one?
Share content, Asil.
Ah, okay.
Near the button leave, okay?
Is it showing something? I think no, yeah. Okay. That's a very short presentation, so I think I should just start because, yeah. Okay. Overall, but let me open it just for myself. Yeah. Overall, yes, let me briefly introduce myself. Yes, currently I work as a research scholar at Harvard Health Systems and Innovation Center. In the previous, I did my MPH, which is like Master of Public Health in Health Policy Analysis at Yale School of Public Health. And I graduated from Nazarbayev University School of Sciences and Humanities with a degree, Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences. Okay, very happy to see you all and thanks for the invitation. And today I'm gonna talk overall how we can, like how researchers and students can ethically use AI, but adhering to the ethical principles. And I've seen the list of wonderful speakers and I assume that probably you already know like importance of ethical consideration, why it's important, or like overall academic integrity and etc. So assuming that you already know everything, I will just go how can we use it. First of all, in a projects in a really big project, we use like virtual assistants in the chat box in order to collect the responses or to help to work with participants, to automate overall the process. For example, we just create like chat box so the participants can quickly get their answers, like regular questions like when is the deadline, how I can submit my responses, what for those like results gonna be used, like all those questions and like all the specific questions we just make like chat box so the participants can get their answers very quickly and without burdening like the researchers or other people like to work like with each participant like individually. And we also use like virtual assistants a lot, again like in order to identify how many responses were collected, what is the best method for data representation, and or just to create the data about participants like their like regular like backgrounds, like an age and etc. So we usually use like for that kind of purposes chat box or virtual assistants. And another very useful AI technique used for research is like NLPs, natural language processing. It's in order to overall extract the information. Like as you know, NLPs are used overall to convert like audios to the text or to extract information from journal articles, or to extract information from videos, like in a text form. And that has been like very useful, because like for research purposes, we don't usually use only like only only scientific journals, but sometimes we need to use like different audios, like interviews and etc. And of course, in all of these cases, we ask for permission, and we show in methods that kind of NLP methods we use in order to extract information. Like we need to be very transparent. Yeah, like we in the methodology we show everything, like what we have used. It's not like right now I'm lazy, let me use the NLPs in order to extract information and just use it. But we need to show every process, we need to document every process. So even when we apply for ethical consideration, like the to get the approval, we show everything, like what kind of AI we're gonna use. And like in all research we have very privacy information, like their like responses of participants, like the main, yeah, like not just by bibliographical information and etc. And we also do not give this information to AI, like we process it by ourselves. But when we need like specific information from the internet, sometimes we use those NLPs to automate overall the process. And also I use it personally a lot in order to find, for example, research gaps, or in order to come up with a research theme that I really like. Like I usually say, like what kind of, for example, use just ChatGPT, yeah, like in order to identify what kind of research gaps currently in that sphere that are not like researched enough, or we don't have enough data and etc. Because overall they have all the information, and it can give you the list of different research topics. I did it when I choose like topics for my capstone projects, and because it really gives you like very relevant topics. Like it's not like just choosing the topics that you like, but it can give you like very resonant, yeah, like this topic is very like relevant right now, or we have lots of data in this sphere, but that like specific breach of this like are not explored enough, so we recommend it. Like in the like also I use it, for example, what kind of topics I can research that will combine like health systems and innovation and like maternal health. Like I give lots of different topics, and they can give me idea, like for example, when I'm writing different not a publication, but like overall like student projects, I use like that kind of ChatGPT or other AI tools in order to come up with the topic. And actually like they're very helpful in doing that when I give like the different spheres and they like offer really good topics. Of course I just don't get it like immediately and research it, but it's really good starting point to start like writing a student project or writing different publications. And also it helps me to create detailed checklist. For example, when I'm applying to universities, or when I'm writing the literature review, or when I'm writing different, again, like student projects, it helps me to create detailed checklist. Like for example, if you're applying, like first of all you need to create a balanced list of universities. Secondly, you need to contact the professors. Thirdly, like for review, like it creates checklist, and it also helps to guide the process. Yeah, because sometimes you can forget something, or sometimes you just like become very like, for example, I know like students and high schoolers are listening to that presentation, and you are applying to grad school, or I don't know, like bachelor studies, you can use like those AIs to create checklist for yourself and etc. And also AIs can recommend specific packages for your data set. For example, I ask like what are package I need to use in order to analyze, I don't know, like the like correlation with this one, and I have like that kind of information. Of course, I do not give that information, but I generally describe the type of the information that I have, and I ask like please recommend me appropriate R package for that. Or sometimes I use like what kind of data visualization I can use that for represents the data. Again, I don't give that data, but overall I describe the data, and it's really helpful. Like it just suggests like heat map works best for that, or that R package like will give like everything you want, and so it just helps to save the time. Yeah, and also for students and for high schoolers, where you can use it, of course, in writing emails. Yeah, I write lots of emails because like my work is hybrid, and at Yale also I worked as a teacher fellow, so I had 90 students. And when students just like write regular emails, or when I write to professors, like all those Grammarly and like ChatGPTs are very helpful just in drafts. Like I just quickly write emails, and it can help me to improve it, like make it more professional. And again, it really saves my time. And the other things that you can use like AI for, like again for high schoolers and students, it's like to prepare for interviews. I usually like submit my CV or that kind of like my information about my experience, and ask like what kind of interview questions I might be asked based on that CV. Or you can just show the link to the vacancy, yeah, like job vacancy, and you can say like, okay, you have like my CV and there's a job description, what kind of questions they may ask. And they give like list of, for example, if you say list of 20 questions or 10 questions, they usually create a really good 10 questions, and I prepare my answers to that questions. And what's surprising, usually I get asked those questions, so it's really helpful. And you can even ask like, I don't know how to reply to that question, for example, about the salary. Yeah, I really struggled with that, because when they ask me what's your salary expectations and so on, like, I cannot just say like 70,000 or I don't know. Yes, and in that kind of cases, like I just use ChatGPT or other AI tools in order to help me, like what is the best reply to that question, what what job interviewers expect from you, or what graduate like admissions committee expecting, like, and they can suggest you different like variety of answers, and you just pick what you want, what suits you. And another like, again, usage is for CV review. I have students, like I have my mentees, yeah, with to whom I help with, again, graduate application, job application. And in that kind of cases, you can again show your bullet points, and just like write your bullet points for CV, like job description or job responsibilities, and it can again improve it, add more details, and it's again also helpful. And you can just submit your CV or any other like documents that's not very private. Yeah, you have everything anyways in LinkedIn, so it's not very private information. So you can just submit that document and say like, find the gaps, or what can I improve, or how can I summarize it in one sentence. And I use like for all of these purposes, just to automate the process and to save the time. Yes, and the most importantly, please like do not use it for motivation letter writing purposes, or like personal statement, research plan, research proposals. Yeah, because it's really easy to find out whether AI was used or not. For example, again, for review, I receive lots of like motivation letters and personal statements, and even through I don't read like thousands of application forms and motivation letters, like probably I read, I don't know, 20 letters, yeah, but still I already can identify where AI was used, because they like they don't have details, they write two general sentences, and they explain one idea in 3 different sentences. I mean, like you can explain it in one sentence, but they again and again explains it in the general terms. And also they use specific words. For example, ChatGPT like often use unwavering like words, like that words, and it's really, like, it's easy to identify, so please don't use it. You can use it for making a plan, making a checklist to guide you, but you shouldn't use it for writing purposes. Better to use, I don't know, like Grammarly and other tools that will help to improve your writing, yeah, but not write for you. So, yep, don't use it for writing motivational letters or statement of purposes. And also another question that I frequently receive is like recommendation letters. Unfortunately, many like high schoolers, many students, like they have to write recommendation letter for themselves because professors say like I don't have time, or provide me with a draft, and many people use those tools. But if you decide to use it, just always adapt it. Just don't submit it like what they give you. Yeah, you need to always add your details. The main idea should be from you, and you can use it for only proofreading, correcting the mistakes, improving the grammar, and etc. But the idea should be from you, because if you just say like I don't know, 10th grade students, and I study biology, can you please write me a recommendation letter for me? It will give you just very generic, very simple, like really not good recommendation letter, and it won't affect positively on your application. So it's better to write and just ask to correct the grammar, and after that sending to professors. But yeah, of course, it's not overall like preferable that you write for yourself a recommendation letter. Like usually you need to ask your professors and give more time, 3 months, 4 months, so they can write it and they have enough time. But if your situation really requires you writing your recommendation letter, again, just use it for like grammar or mistake correcting purposes, but do not let the AI like fully write for you. Yeah. Okay. And yes, I'm open to any questions. These were the points that came to my mind, like when I asked myself a question, like where do I usually use AI in my everyday life? Yes, and yeah, if you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer.
Oh, in fact, there is one question from Aygrim Karanar. She asks you she tells you first that the use of auto GPT in chat boxes that you mentioned is a lifesaver, and that she's been thinking of developing a model for Nazarbayev University as well, for a new student herself. However, she wonders how we can be 100% sure that the information generated by the auto GPT is not a hallucination, but actually a valid, true, reasonable information that can be used to it.
So is this question related to more chat box or to using the chat GTP overall? So
To the chat boxes and the use of them in a model for NU, as I have gathered.
Like it's not mandatory to use only auto-generated responses. Like you can enter those responses. For example, like it's like a frequently asked question. So you give all this information like to your chat box. So just depending on what is questions, they will get information from your response and will give it to them. But the response overall can be generated not by, like the original response will be generated by you. So you just predict what kind of questions they might ask, and you give, for example, the information like agenda of the research, like the timeline of the research, and you give all those information, and it just like organizes it, and it just takes that information from that original document to reply to your participants. I mean, like AI, what's good in AI is you can always control it. I mean, like right now we can control it, and you can give you can say like get information only from that document, or somehow limit the pool of the AI, like information pool of AI.
Okay, thank you for answering the question. In fact, this the attendee Aygirim Karanar, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. She seems to be a fan of you, as she's typed in the comment section that she's been watching you for 6 months now. Additionally, thank you to you, Damir and Peggy, who has unfortunately been unable to rejoin the session.
Thank you.
Likely due to her internet. Thank you for having the time to come here. It's early morning, I believe, in the USA. I also have a friend who studies there, 6 or 7 a.m. around there, right?
It's 9 already, so it's okay.
Oh, 9.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I just had my overnight flight, so I arrived like 1 hour ago. So yeah, that's why I was a bit late. I'm sorry. Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, the time doesn't allow us to continue with the Q&A. We will be finishing up this forum. So yeah, in the comment section, we have Bota Altunhanova, Ingrim, and Yarasul thanking you.
Oh, I found the chat. Yeah, now I can read the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Now I will give the word over to Ayuru.
Yeah, thanks again for you all for being with us today. And thanks to those who have been here with us from the very beginning of this forum. It's already the 6th hour going on. And it's great to see that you are all committed and interested in academic integrity. Again, special thanks to Damir and Asid for joining us from the States. And we're concluding our forum today. We have explored so many aspects of academic integrity, and we express our gratitude to all of the speakers for sharing their knowledge, insights, and valuable time with us. Once again, thank you for watching, participating, and contributing to this forum.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
Also, to the attendees that would like to participate in the contest, the results will be made available on April 1st, if I am correct. And the recording of this meeting will be made available in Microsoft Teams and our YouTube channel, Integrity Project. You can share the recording with your friends and alike in case some information you find is very useful and you'd like to discuss it more. Also, the discussion chat will also stay still open in this forum, so you can keep discussing and maybe even mentioning one or specific speaker, and they will likely, I hope, they will answer your question. In the worst case, someone else will answer and a interesting discussion will begin. So with this, I wish you luck in your future endeavors with using AI to stay safe, not to get caught plagiarizing, to keep academic integrity intact, in fact. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much.